Good evening and welcome to Tuesdays at 8, our Facebook Live event that we have on every other Tuesday. I am Diane Mara, a Visual Faith coach, our webmaster and social media brand manager for Visual Faith Ministries. Tonight, we are going to be discussing the Movable Adventure, and specifically the digital pathway. My guest this evening is Chad Lakies, and he is going to be talking to us and answering some of the questions and giving us hints about what is the shape of your digital witness. Welcome, Chad. We're so happy you're here.
Hey, thank you for having me, Diane. It's really a privilege to be with you.
Yes, this is wonderful. Well, let me give you a little bit of an introduction of who Chad is. He's actually a Reverend Dr. Chad Lakies, and he serves in leadership and management for Lutheran Hour Ministries in St. Louis, Missouri, where he lives. His work is focused on proclaiming the gospel to non-churched people, using mass media to help spread the gospel, and helping the church become more outreach focused by empowering it to share the gospel at more personal levels. He holds degrees in philosophy, psychology, and theology, and is a sought-after speaker on the topic of digital witnessing. So you are in for a real treat tonight because Chad is the main speaker for the digital pathway, and he's going to be sharing a lot about that. And I found it so interesting once we first talked to you, Chad, about being a part of the Movable Adventure, that your question about using your digital presence as a witness has just really stuck with me, and I now understand this more. So I think you all are going to be very interested in hearing a little bit more about this. So let's start with, my first question to you would be, what are some of the cultural challenges to our digital witness?
I could go on for a really long time about that, but I think there's a handful. Some things have radically changed, especially in North American culture in the last 30 years.
Okay.
And I think one of the big things that we experience that we don't pay a lot of attention to is that as a society, there's not sort of this one central thing that's uniting us anymore. For a long time, I think a lot of people believed that was the Christian faith or the Judeo-Christian worldview, as many people have talked about. Politically, kind of going right down the same timeline and same stream as that, we had the Cold War that was going on for a really long time after World War II. And it united us nationally as a group of people, and sort of the sensibility that we're a Christian nation united us similarly. So like these two were kind of bread and butter. And so 1989, the Berlin Wall came down, communism ended, and the Cold War was over. And ever since then, I think socially as a nation, we've been struggling to have something that unites us, right? As a people, what does it mean to be Americans? What does it mean to be for something? And during the time of the Cold War, being for something meant being against them, right? The Russians, for example.
Right.
And parallel to that loss of a national sense of unity, we've been continuously experiencing the decline of Christianity. A lot of people are talking about this. Churches are getting smaller, membership is shrinking, fewer and fewer Americans are members of Christian congregations. A staggering number came out earlier this year from the Gallup organization that said now less than 50% of Americans are members of Christian congregations. That's the smallest number. It's never been below 50% in the entire time that Gallup has been taking surveys, and that's from the 1930s. And so these two things, I think the loss of a sense of national identity and the loss of a sense of we've got this shared Christian culture has created this empty vacuum, and we don't know what we're for. And so now what we're seeing perhaps vehemently is people kind of clamoring into smaller and smaller, tighter knit groups. Even the ones that seem to be large and have unity internally, they're fracturing and splintering into small groups within themselves. And everybody's trying to be for something, because I think when we are for something, it gives us a sense of identity. I feel like I belong to something. It gives me a sense of meaningfulness in my life. And these are all very good human things that I believe God created us for. And I believe in many ways the church serves that purpose. But amongst so many institutions in our culture right now, it's as distrusted as any other. And so when we're trying to talk about doing something like digital witnessing in this culture where we're so fragmented and divided and polarized and kind of at each other's throats, or we decide even, to just dissociate from someone who thinks or believes different than me, like I can't even talk to them, right? I'm not even considered the possibility of being their friend. I can't talk to them, right? The whole association seems impossible. I think it's an outcome of this, we're clamoring to find something to give me a sense of identity and meaning. And perhaps we're looking in all of the wrong places all too often. And it's just a fight of group after group, one after another. And then it boils down into, in the online world, pile-ons and the chance for people to try to do a takedown of someone by mere criticism. And it plays itself out also, I think, in our human sinfulness. So I'll just make this one extra comment. I think we all like a good train wreck, as it were, right? We're rubberneckers, all of us, right? Part of what it means to all be sinners, from Romans 3:23, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so when we see something like that, our tendency is to give it a lot of attention. And so in the social media world, one of the ways that this is playing out is that when someone does a pile on or attacks somebody else, or frankly, just post something negative about a them, some other group, if you want virality on social media, that's what's going to get it. Mm-hmm. And so we're really struggling in this day and age in a digital space where we all get to live and breathe and kind of interact now outside of the in real life space. And it's this really weird space where we don't know how to get along with each other anymore.
Well, you've given us some excellent examples, and I think brings to my mind, number one, Visual Faith Ministries kind of exists online because we have a website. So if you want to know who we are, up until COVID, we had a lot of in-person events where Connie or Pat and some of the other visual faith coaches would go to churches and do events. So there was that one-on-one. But of course, when COVID happened, everything shut down. So we weren't doing face-to-face. So we exist basically as, I think, as a good example of trying to pull people together in a commonality of our faith to enable those people to go deeper in their personal relationship with Jesus. And so that's really what started the whole Movable Adventure, because we put on a retreat in March, and it was very well attended. We had over 1,000 people from all over the world attended our retreat. And that was just talking about prayer practices. And when we thought about what would we do next, what as you're saying, what do people need? We're still in the throes of COVID. People still don't go and do certain things. We just realized that our whole focus is on the coaches, and the Visual Faith executive team is about spiritual transformation personally. How do we share that digitally? Because this Movable Adventure will be digitally online. You will go there and watch videos. What can we offer to draw people back to that, as you said, having an identity and belonging? And that's hopefully where Visual Faith ministry really fits in and what the Movable Adventure is. But I realized we started talking about the digital pathway before we really started talking about what really is the Movable Adventure. So let's stop for 1 second, Chad, and let's just watch the promo video, because I think this will really help you if this is the first time you're tuning into us and you've just heard about the Movable Adventure and you're like, what is it? I have no idea what it is. Well, let's just watch this really quick, and maybe you'll have some questions, or this will answer your questions.
Have you ever wondered if your spiritual life can be more? More peace, more joy, more room for God in your life? Have you ever wondered why life is so difficult sometimes? Struggles emerge, pain assaults, fears take over, and God feels distant. Have you ever wanted to be changed? To be present with God more consistently? To enjoy a vibrant prayer and worship life? To serve God with all that He has created in you? To know you are following Jesus rather than going your own way? The Movable Adventure is made to address these spiritual life issues. God has already established pathways and practices that can help. Join the adventure as together we walk with the Lord and allow His Spirit to transform us.
So hopefully that gives you a kind of an idea of where we're coming from. And it fits in totally with what Chad was talking about. We're saying join us, which is our collective digital community at this point. Join us on this adventure. And let's go down those 4 pathways that we've identified: the personal pathway, the household's pathway, the community pathway, and the digital pathway. And let's together see where the Holy Spirit wants to take us. So can you maybe piggyback off of what we just saw of how you think this offering that we're doing will help pull people, as you're saying, we're all fractured and, people are just so negative, because that's what I hear all the time. I don't want to be on Facebook. I don't want to be on Instagram because all it does is upset me and I don't want to see all that stuff. So maybe kind of give us some ideas on how do we answer those questions or give suggestions.
Sure. Yeah, I think those complaints and concerns are totally true. That experience is true for a lot of people. And there are things that, of course, you can do about that. I mean, some people choose completely to totally sign off. Other people will choose to, really start to mute a lot of voices in their feeds and so on. But I think the effort that Visual Faith is trying to do is create something of a positive community. And what I mean by that is you're pulling people together. And this is always a risk in terms of the social media world, because the algorithms will always work against us to be in contact with people who are other or different than us. It will almost inevitably, unless we work against it, try to silo us into groups where we're just hearing the things that we care about repeated to us over and over again to make us feel like we're always right. There's something dangerous about that. But I think what Visual Faith is trying to do is bring together people into a community where there's mutual encouragement, where there is, in a sense, mutual, I don't know that I like the word sharpening anymore. I used to like that word, but it rings in my ears like too much about the culture war now and too much about the way social media dynamics tend to play out. At any rate, it's mutually formative and perhaps maturing.
Okay,
so that as you're moving forward, you're not kind of trying to live out the light of the gospel, the character of Jesus alone. Mm-hmm. You've also got some other people who are doing it in a way that's different than you because of their personality, predisposition, whatever. But from them, they give you ideas to spark your imagination and that you can riff off of and kind of start to apply in your own way. And so this is what I really like about the Visual Faith movement. And then I think internal to its own dynamic is that it is so vastly open to outsiders in a tremendous way. It's constantly invitational, but not for the sake of bringing people in to simply join an echo chamber where they're hearing their own thoughts repeated back to themselves. In fact, you're inviting people in to encounter Jesus Christ as Lord through other human beings who are encountering the same Jesus. And that Jesus is, every time we encounter him, the kind of person that leaves us changed after every encounter. We never encounter Jesus and leave the same. He doesn't allow us to stay that way. He always makes us different. So pathways of transformation, that's a fantastic way of thinking about each of these little journeys that you've kind of built into a big adventure. And I think the more you interact with each other online, the more you're positively reinforcing behaviors, ways of engaging, that might be the sort of thing that starts to ripple out there. And while you're a small group, that's really fantastic still. You can have a small yet positive influence out there in the larger social media world. It doesn't always have to be toxic.
Mm-hmm. And thanks for saying that. I love what you just said, because when you said about being in certain groups, maybe that you're just hearing your own echo, which is, maybe that's not good. I think for me, I know my time spent in any kind of social media is about reinforcing my faith. And at the same time, I'm reinforcing that because, as you just mentioned, I'm seeing what people are doing. What practices did they have? And their little story of a transformation, like, wow, I didn't know that, and now I'm here, and that I'm so influenced internally, personally, in a very positive way, that encourages me to then share my practices and the things that I do to deepen my faith. So I think we're both saying the same message. We just want to encourage people you could focus on the negative. That's where you want to be. And if you want, like you said, if you want to sign off, go ahead and sign off. But if you just turn it around and think about, you actually have been given an opportunity that we never thought about, is that my faith could actually influence people that I may never meet face to face. I may never know what little nugget that I shared really has caused them to go deeper with God. And that's the opportunity that you talk so eloquently about in your digital pathway. I'm going to show the overall plan for those of you who haven't seen this before. So as we talked about, the Movable, it's an adventure. It's a 1-year time of coming alongside people, listening to their testimonial stories, listening to their encouragement. And as we said, we have 4 pathways: the personal, the households, community, and the digital. And in the digital pathway, we have Chad talking about the big picture about digital witnessing. And then what we've done is we've asked our coaches who have a very positive presence on the internet to share how they use these social media outlets to actually share their faith. So we've got Jennifer talking about using Procreate. We've got 3 digital missioners who really focus on Instagram: Michelle, Lisa, and Pam. And then we've got our Facebook person, Karen Hunter, who's going to show about her, and you're going to love her video, because the one most important thing she says is, I post because God asked me to. I don't look at how many likes I got or anything like that, just because I've been called to do that. And then Connie shares a lot about Pinterest and how there's another huge opportunity for us to turn it from a mindless, I'm just looking at photos, into another opportunity to be a digital witness. And then we gathered 3 people who spend a lot of time on Zoom in their church body and giving us tips and hints on, the Zoom world. So we've put this together. You'll see in the digital pathway, there are 10 different videos. So let me just talk to you a little bit about how do you do this? That's what people should be asking. How do you do this? So on November 3rd, we will go live, meaning you've got a ticket. On November 3rd, you will have all of those videos available to you. Where you choose to start is up to you. You may start in the personal pathway. You may go right to the digital, because maybe that's a burning thing inside of you of, I don't want to be on Facebook, but they're telling me I should. So I need to hear more about that. You start there, and it's not a sprint. It's a long term, because most of these videos you're going to watch and you're going to take notes. You're going to think about it, pray about it. And then God may use that to change you, and you may want to watch it again. And the best part too is, as Chad was talking about, we've offered you the ability to purchase a sharing permission license for $19, meaning you can share this entire but our adventure, with your church, with your small group, with your family, if you want to. Maybe, the sets of grandparents or parents are far away, and you get on Zooms and do those kinds of things. So it's really about walking. We're going to walk with you. We're offering this. And you will have the opportunity to learn more, to be encouraged, to be inspired. And I think it's just going to be a great opportunity for everyone, as Chad has just mentioned, from all those factions of, I don't really want to be on the internet, it's very negative, to this is such a positive experience. So because we talked about the negative, because that's in existence right now, what do you think are some of the difficulties people may have if they step out and maybe change their attitude to using social media for Jesus? What would be some of those difficulties that you think they're going to encounter, and what advice would you have?
I think the biggest thing that we're nervous about is encountering somebody who disagrees with us. When we share on social media, it's a really vulnerable thing. We're putting ourselves out there. And I think for many of the people involved in visual faith, we're trying to be real, right? This isn't like some fabricated avatar that we're trying to hide behind. But we're actually trying to live and be the sort of person that Jesus has called us and made us to be out there on the interwebs. And so, the most scary thing, and I think additional media has helped us become afraid of this, is, what if I say something that somehow violates some cultural orthodoxy that I didn't know about? And the comments just start to pile up and attack me. Well, there are ways that you can control how that works on your profile. You can cut all those off. You can delete them. You're in control of what happens on your wall or on your Instagram feed or on your Twitter and so on. But the next scary thing that I think requires a little bit more vulnerability is to figure out, how do I respond? Mm-hmm. And I think one of the challenges is hang on to it, think it through for a little bit, maybe even talk with another person who knows you, who you trust. You can say, I've had this happen. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle it, and so just vehemently disagreed and tried to flame and shame me on my Twitter feed or whatever. What I would want to do, because I'm just curious. And trust me, I feel the same fears. I have a really high guilt complex. It is a part of me and my predisposition that I don't want people to be upset with me. So I'm talking to everybody who's like me in a sense when I bring this issue up. But what I would also want to try to do, because I'm trying to make this own commitment for myself, because I think it's a way that I can carry out the light of Jesus online, is take the conversation off of the public part of the platform and engage with that person by asking questions. Well, I see that you didn't agree with me. Like, can you tell me more about your position? Can you tell me more about what you're thinking? And take that risk, offer them a space, and see if, when you give that person a platform and you're doing it on a more one-on-one level where they don't have to put all of their stuff out there in front of everybody else either, see if when you give them a platform, they'll reciprocate. That takes a risk. They might not. And when they don't, I don't know, maybe you could do the shake the dust off of my feet and move on to the next town thing that Jesus advised the disciples to do. But I think before we abandon the engagement, I think we've got an opportunity and maybe even a Jesus-like obligation to engage with people, right? He never let an issue prevent a relationship. I think that's one of the things that I mentioned in my session. But over and over again, we see this. Like, even he intentionally engages people who are radically different than him. The woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, for example. But he does it with Zacchaeus, the tax collector. Zacchaeus, come down out of the tree. I'm going to have dinner at your house tonight. And everybody gets riled up right there in that chapter. I think it's Luke 19 in particular. Everybody starts grumbling. He's this tax collector, right? But you're going to eat with him? Symbolically 2,000 years ago, that means that they were kind of like, Jesus said, I'm essentially throwing my hat into his identity group, right? We're one together, essentially. And that's how everybody read it. That's why they started grumbling. How could this rabbi, this teacher, eat with this sinner? And it became this like radically redemptive moment. right? The story is very brief, but so much is going on there. I wonder, right, if we start to try to be human to other humans, what they might experience when we treat them with dignity and respect. I want to hear you out. Okay, here's my take. I could be wrong. I'm not sure that I love the way you flamed me publicly, but I'm willing to hear your position.
Right.
Let's have a conversation. I don't know how that might go. None of us know, but that's something to say to God. Like, God, I'm going to take a risk and do this. Will you be in this conversation? Will you guide me? Will you be with this person? And help me to be a witness for Jesus, if nothing else. If there's no outcome, if this isn't resolved, if it doesn't even go my way, right? Like if I don't end up being right, if they prove to me that I'm wrong and I've got to humbly admit big fat error, okay, but like let Jesus be the center of this.
And the guide. That's some really good points. And I have one question from somebody. I love this. Is it even possible to have a real and authentic conversation in digital spaces? I think it is.
Yeah.
But I love what you said.
It's a really hard question. It's actually the sort of thing that's bothered philosophers for a while, even. So you all know that I'm a nerd, because of all the studies that Diane listed off at the beginning that I've done. I've always found it intriguing. There's a Slovenian philosopher named Slavoj Žižek, probably one of the coolest names you could ever have. He asked the question, how do I know that the person on the other side of the screen is real, right? How do I know I'm actually engaging with a real person, not a robot, not an avatar, not somebody doing some kind of performative activity? And I'm not sure that there's a way that we can totally know. We've got to do maybe what we sometimes do in literature when we're reading fiction. We've kind of got to set aside our disbelief a little bit and roll with it for a while. And the more we build a relationship with this person, hopefully it will become more and more real, to the extent that you can develop trust and have expectations like we do in embodied, in real life activities. But I also think on social media, there is a certain set of limitations, right? It's very text-based, it's very image-based, it's even very video-based. And to the extent that I'm doing any of that, we all know when we're on the receiving end of that material that there could be some level, an element of performance behind all of that, right? So I can curate exactly how I want my Facebook pictures to look. And research shows, especially for young women, that they will take up hundreds of pictures and go through and pick out just the little bits that they think look perfect, right? But what they really think is, this is what's going to get me the most attention, the most likes, right? And kind of meet that internal need that we might have. We can do that with our comments, right? The way that we post things. We can do that with other images. We can do that with the things that we like, the things that we share, the videos that we make. It's always difficult. And I think as a Lutheran pastor, this is where the truth is that we're saint and sinner at the same time really comes out. I'm not sure that anybody can ever be perfectly authentic with others except for Jesus, right? Because there's so much that I want from you as another human being in terms of a sense of affirmation, a sense of acceptance. I want to know that I'm loved. I want to know that we're okay. All those desires are buried deep down. Always they're unspoken, but they play themselves out in terms of our human interaction.
They do.
And I think the most intimate and vulnerable relationships we can have are probably with our family, our spouses, our children. Like, I will behave for my children in a way that I will never let anyone else see ever. I act like a complete fool for my kids. But in a public persona moment like this, like, I don't want you to ever know that I would do. I will never act silly and stupid online. But like last night, I was dancing around in my living room to old 90s dance music that both of my kids got into for a few minutes. So I played the part. Yeah. But that's kind of how it is. Sometimes we're putting up a little bit of a barrier because we're always fearful that if you really know the really me, you might not actually
Like
love
me.
me. You might not accept me,
Yes.
right? And this is a Christian thing, hugely, right? This goes straight to the heart of our actual problem. What do I need? Ultimately, I need God to love me.
Mm-hmm.
I need righteousness. I need to be justified, right? These are big theological terms that you hear in sermons, but I think it's totally true. And you can see it playing out on social media, right? We perform a little bit, and we always struggle with the challenge of being as authentic and as real as we really want to be. You know, I want to be loved and known for the real, authentic me that I believe I am, but I'm always afraid somebody else won't.
And, you know, I find that so interesting because recently, I think in the past couple months, I don't know how it happens, but somebody I don't know will post something and I start to read it and immediately it's different. It's not what you just said most people are doing. Well, here, look, here's my perfect life. See, I'm perfectly good looking and I do all these perfect things. And they really tell you where they really are. And that is so encouraging. And then when you see the responses people have, so they're not being rejected for saying, yeah, my life is really bad right now. This is not working out well. So I think that what I'm hearing you say, and then Emily just shared hers, her comment was, it is possible to be authentic. She tries to focus on the places I find encouragement to be my authentic self. And that piggybacks on what I just said, is that you can do it. I think, have to pray a lot before you do it. And you have to be really fine with whatever response you get, even if it's no response, that's okay. And that I'm still okay because Jesus loves me and he wanted me to share that. So it's
I mean, you're talking about kind of where you anchor your identity.
Yeah.
Is it in the opinions of others? I mean, it's kind of difficult as sinners to avoid that completely, but that's why we keep coming back to communities like Visual Faith, where we know that the anchor for the center of our identity is Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. His redemption won for us, which basically transcends and overcomes all of these other efforts, right? Mm-hmm. Whether I'm trying to be the best parent or the best employee, or I'm trying to be, sound like the smartest person online, or I've got the cleanest house online, or the happiest, whatever, if it's anchored in Jesus, that transcends all of those other efforts. And a community like this is just that sort of community. It provides that.
And we're hearing that from some of the people that are listening this evening. Alan talks about this is a community of mutual encouragement and maturing, and that's, very positive. And let's see. Oh, Connie said, can you imagine the Twitter feed when Jesus went to eat with the kids? That would have been, we could totally imagine it, right? We can. Yeah. What? He went there? What the heck? Yeah, that would not have been a positive Twitter feed at all.
I saw an article just the other day about the current actor who's reprising his last time as the role of James Bond. I can't remember what his name is.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
But anyway, apparently he did something funny a handful of years ago on Saturday Night Live. It's become a meme and all that. And he's like, I have no idea because I don't have a social media page. I think that'd be like Jesus's response to whatever happened on Twitter, what it blew up about him having dinner at Zacchaeus' house. He's like, I'm not on social media. I don't know what you're talking about.
No idea.
And so it wouldn't matter, but for everybody else, it's like all the biggest news, and some of them they're rah-rahing and others are crushed by it. Yeah.
And this is a good comment. I've loved talking to so many wonderful people on a Visual Faith page. And I think that goes back to what you just described, is that I don't feel that in our Visual Faith Facebook group that there are people having any agenda. An agenda for me would mean I want everybody to think I'm perfect. I want everybody to think I'm the best Visual Faith coach or whatever, any of those weird things. I don't think people have an agenda in our Facebook group. And it's so refreshing to be in a Facebook group where that's the case. People are very real. Like, we get a lot of questions. Oh, I was just asked to talk about Visual Faith. Where do I start? I have no idea where to start. I'm a newbie. I've never tried this. Or, how do you do all those things? How do you fit them in your life? And that's what you're going to hear in so many of the stories in the Movable Adventures. If you're a parent of littles and you've got littles in your house, your ability to spend an hour with them sharing Jesus might be almost impossible because of their age, because of your lifestyle, whatever's going on. But be encouraged that even whatever moment you give to that child or to your family, God will use that. And that's what's great about our Facebook community, and I think our IG community also, is because people are not trying to be perfect, look good, be the best artist, be something that they're not. They're really just being very real.
Yeah.
And that's really the beauty of everything.
I think,
go ahead.
just to say like two quick things, safe spaces like that are hard to come by.
Yes.
And so I think every member should cherish it, and every member who communicates in that group and is a part of it and benefits from it should realize the richness of it. But the other comment is that, you got to lay that at the feet of the founders, Pat and Connie, who have really pulled this together, in a sense, kind of created it out of nothing, without a lot of work, but really just very relational. They created a culture here at Visual Faith that I don't know that I've encountered it anyplace else. It's not irreplicable. But the only reason I say that is because I think Jesus and the Holy Spirit are the ones behind them,
yes,
making the movement happen.
Yes.
Right. And he's able to do this when and where he chooses to do it. So yeah, they've really just followed his lead there in creating this space and this atmosphere where it's safe for people to be vulnerable, come together, learn together, and get to know one another and Jesus better through all of that activity.
Yeah. And I think you're going to hear that as you watch all of our videos, because we have a lot of people that Connie and Pat asked to share their story, like they knew part of their story. And they said, no one would want to know that. Like, I'm nobody. I don't, this is no big deal. That's the beauty. It's because they're just a person living out their life with Jesus. And it's the thing that they're giving in small groups. They're doing things at their church. They're just being everyday witnesses. And that's the stories we all want to know, because that's very encouraging to me, because I don't have to think, well, she's an artist. She took, she has a degree in art, so I could never do what she does. We're just real people sharing our transformation stories. And that's what makes it, very powerful. Well, I think I would really like to play. Chad did a great job of giving us an introduction to the digital pathway. So let's watch this video, because I think it will give you a little bit more sense of what he's going to be talking about and what the people in that pathway will be sharing. So let's go.
Welcome to the digital pathway. There are many digital spaces we inhabit from time to time. Among people we're close with, we engage in text messaging and direct video connections like FaceTime. We engage in larger group meetings using apps like Zoom. There are streaming and video services, and of course, there's the always-on nature of the countless social media spaces. You may not use any of these, but it's likely you use some, at least every now and again, and sometimes with a little help. It's hard to keep up with the growing and constantly changing world of digital spaces, but there are some constants about all digital spaces we can recognize. First, other humans like you and me engage with each other there. Second, the way we engage in digital spaces presents unique challenges and unique opportunities. What's critical for these sessions is acknowledging this truth. You have an opportunity to be a witness for Jesus Christ in every one of these spaces. The 20th century martyr Dietrich Bonhoeffer called Jesus Christ the man for others. St. Paul wrote in his letter to Galatians, "It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me." If Jesus Christ is the man for others, and Christ lives in you and me, then that makes us people for others. This is who we are in Christ. But what does that mean for how we engage with others in digital spaces? The first sessions will challenge you to think reflectively about your witness in digital spaces. We'll discuss how these spaces have shaped and continue to exacerbate ways of engagement with others that have contributed to our fractured and polarized culture. We'll wonder about how much influence our time in digital spaces has on our time in face-to-face interactions. And we'll explore some challenges we have to overcome as we try to practice a better way, a more faithful way, a way that follows Jesus in his approach when we connect with others in digital spaces. In the sessions that follow, you'll hear from fellow practitioners about how they creatively seek to engage with others in a handful of digital spaces. Their ideas are not limited to those spaces but adaptable across the many digital spaces we all inhabit. In everything, the truth I mentioned a moment ago remains. Wherever you are, you have an opportunity to be a witness for Jesus Christ. This includes the digital as well as every other pathway you've already explored. Wherever we are and whatever we're doing, God is at work in us. And because he's moving, he's made us movable. So let's jump in and see what kind of transformative work he's about to do in your life as you embark on the digital pathway.
That's so powerful and so inviting.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to know more about this now. And I want to post, Karen give us a really good comment when we were just talking about how great that we have this wonderful space to be in on the internet in our Visual Faith Facebook group. I think a big part of the Visual Faith community is that our focus is on Christ. Thank you, Karen, for kind of putting together what we've been saying. We celebrate the presence of Christ in each other and how he continues to transform us. And that's really the whole point of Visual Faith ministry. It's the whole point of what's coming up to the Movable Adventure that we're asking you to join with us. I want to just tell you one other thing. We're so excited and so proud. We're actually going to be published. We are publishing a book on Amazon, and it's actually going to be the Movable Adventure Journal. And it's our companion guide to your online experience. This will be available, we hope, in the next 2 weeks, so you can purchase that. You can also, if you don't want to buy the book, it's going to be $14.99. You will be able to download a PDF and print it. I think you'll find that it's probably less expensive to purchase the book and have it sent to your house than to do the printing, because we are up to 180 some pages in the book. So we're very excited about that. It's our first venture into publishing. And I think it'll be a great opportunity for people because you can take all of your notes. So it's a printed book. You write your notes. You, as we've talked about, go back and forth, watching videos, rewatching them, sharing them with other people. And it'll be a place to keep all of your notes, your prayers, your practices that you may be starting with a lot of the ideas people are going to be sharing. So as we get ready to close our live event tonight, Chad, I want to say thank you for participating in the Movable Adventure #1, for being one of our guest speakers for that whole session. And to say, is there any final point you want to make, or encouragement, or telling people to join us? You've got the floor.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I'm thrilled and privileged to be invited to be a part of this. I hope and pray that every effort that has been made behind the scenes by so many people, Diane, yourself, but so many others I know in the Visual Faith community, to make this a reality. I hope it comes to just it exceeds your imagination, in terms of fruition and the work that God does through it. And I encourage everybody to join and at least from my end, when we're talking about digital spaces and especially the human relationships and the way that they play out, if there's one thing that I can give away lately, it's really just been emphasizing the fact that Jesus never let an issue prevent a relationship. And I think he's calling us to the same. I think we're longing for it as a culture and a society where the one thing we seem to be united about is this ironic issue of how divided we are and how frustrated we are about those divisions and how much we don't know what to do about it. It's 93% of us or so, based on surveys, are united about that. That's just so ironic. So if you want a way out, the pathway for transformation, pathways here in the Movable Adventure are going to help you lean into Jesus and follow him into all different kinds of ways of relating to God and other human beings that should allow you to feel more confident and equipped in how you engage with others in our radically polarized world.
Thank you so much for those excellent words. And we will leave you with thank you for this evening. Thank you for joining our Tuesdays at 8 weekly Facebook events. We're doing them every 2 weeks right now. So join us again in 2 weeks for conversation, encouragement, and inspiration, and answering more questions about the Movable Adventure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening.